Welcome to the LabSolution video for the HiveStorageFormats lab. All right, in this section of the lab, we're going to experiment with different file and record formats in Hive. You'll remember that we've already created multiple tables in our Hive system that are of the text file format. So now we're going to basically take advantage of the fact we already have tables with data in them, and we're going to create new tables that are essentially mimicking the metadata of the tables we already have. And we're going to have Hive basically transfer the data into our new tables and behind the scenes convert formats for us. So we'll go from text file format to sequence file format. The first thing that we're going to do in this lab is we are going to work with sequence files. If you remember, we created a products table in a previous lab, and we created that table using the stored as text file clause. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new table called products_sequence format that's going to be stored as a sequence file. And what we're going to do is we're going to have Hive do the conversion from text file to sequence file for us by simply running an insert statement. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new table in Hive. It's going to be called products_sequence format. And what we're going to do is use the exact same DDL that we used to create the original projects table, except we're going to change that stored as clause to say sequence file instead of text file. Here we go. We're entering the DDL. It should look familiar to you. That's complete. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to enter in show tables. And we can see that our new table was added. And now we're going to set Hive's output format to vertical. That way we can see the describe extended information better. And you're going to notice some interesting things listed here. You're going to see the input format. You're going to see the output format. You're going to see the SERDI. And then you're also going to want to take note of the HDFS location with the data for this table. And it's important to recognize that using the stored as sequence file clause in our create table statement, it set the input and out formats behind the scene for us. We didn't have to explicitly specify those values when creating the table, but keep in mind that we could have if we wanted to. So now it's time to load our product sequence format table with data. We're going to do that by running the insert query that you see on the screen. A MapReduce job is being run. And behind the scenes, a temp space is being used to store the intermediate data. Now let's go into the Big Insights web console. And we'll examine the product sequence format table in HDFS and see what Hive did for us. So we'll navigate to the directory named product_sequence format, and you can see our data is there. Now, that doesn't really look like a text file, does it? There's some weird characters there, it's hard to read, and that's because the file is, in fact, in sequence file format. So let's try something a little different, something that'll help us look at a sequence file and have it be a little clearer to us. We're going to run the Hadoop fs-text command, and that should allow us to view the sequence file in a little bit of a better format, a bit more human readable. And there we go, things look quite a bit better. Now we're going to do the same thing using the RC file format. So we're going to go back to the Beeline CLI, and we're going to create a new table in Hive called products_RC file format. And we're going to use very similar DDL to what we used to create the original products table, except in this example, we're going to explicitly tell Hive which SERDI and which input-output formats to use. We're going to enter those here in a moment as we're typing in the DDL to create this table. So we're telling Hive that we're going to use the columnar SERDI, then we're going to provide the input format and the output format. So we're explicitly providing that information. Now let's do a describe extended of this new table. And let's take a look. You can see the input format. You can see the output format. You can see the SERD. And you're going to notice they're exactly what we specified in the DDL. Also, take a look at the HDFS location for this table. And nothing that you see should come as a surprise since we explicitly specified all that data. Now we're loading our products_RC file format table with data. We're doing that using the insert query. There we go. That's complete. And now let's set the output format inside of Beeline back to table format so we can see things a little bit better when we run the following query. We're going to do a select all from our table. And there are the results. All the data should be there. So now let's examine our data file over on HDFS and see exactly what Hive did for us. We're going to open up a Linux terminal and we're going to run the Hadoop fs-cat command for the data file inside of the products_RC file format directory. And we can see that the data looks a bit wacky to the human eye. What we need to do is view the data using a tool that can display the contents of an RC file better. So what we'll do is we're going to change directories over to hive_home/bin, and we're going to run the RC file cat, which is a utility that will help us view our RC files in a more human-readable format. There we go. That looks a lot better. That's much more readable to the human eye than what we were previously looking at. Now we can lower the Linux terminal and go back to Beeline. And what we're going to do next is we're going to work with ORC files. And ORC files are a newer format that were created to essentially replace RC files. They do multiple things better than an RC file. And we're going to create a products_ORC format table. Pretty much the same process that we've been doing for the other table formats in this lab so far, except we're going to add a stored as ORC line at the end of this DDL. And there we go. We've now created the table. So next, let's load data into this new ORC table format. A MapReduce job is being run, and our data is being loaded into our products_ORC format table. That's completed, and now let's go ahead and select all from this table. Confirm that there's actually data inside of it. There's our results. Now let's go into the Big Insights web console, and we will take a look at the data file inside of the products_ORC format directory. There we go. We can see the size of the file, and we can see that there's some data in there. Finally, in this lab, let's take a look at compression. So from within the Beeline CLI, we're going to enter a couple commands. And what we're telling Hive to do is to compress the output of our queries. We aren't telling it to perform intermediate compression, which is a slightly different set of variables that would need to be set. And as you can see, we're telling Hive to use gzip compression. So now inside of the Big Insights web console, we'll take a look at our RC file format table. Note the size, 1.7 kilobytes. And now that we've set these compression variables, we're going to go ahead and reload our table with data. And then we're going to go back in and take a look and see what size the table is. after it's been output compressed. So we load the table with data, and the previous data will be overridden. There we go, that completed. Let's go check the size. We'll do a refresh. And you can see that the size definitely is smaller, 912 bytes. And now just for good measure, we can do a select query just to prove that we can still select data out of our table. We'll let that run for a moment, and it should come back to us. There we go. There's our records. And finally, we're going to set the output compression back to false.